The settlement didn't just change things for Jordan, it changed everything for the entire sport. Because, critically, the agreement didn't only restore what was taken from 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports, it restructured NASCAR itself. Every single Cup Series team, big, small, and everything in between, received evergreen charters under improved terms. For the first time, teams had long-term security in a sport where uncertainty had defined everything for years. And just like that, a lawsuit that started as a fight for two teams became a sport-wide transformation. Once the legal battle ended, Michael Jordan stepped into the 2026 season with a completely different energy. Not as someone fighting for survival, but as someone watching the results of a system he helped force to change. And the timing couldn't have been more dramatic. Because what happened on the track next wasn't just success, it was domination. Driver Tyler Reddick came out swinging from race 1. He opened the season with a win at the Daytona 500, the most prestigious race in NASCAR. Then he did something even more shocking. He won the next 2 races after that. 3 straight victories to start a season, something no driver had ever done in NASCAR Cup Series history. And by that point, it wasn't just momentum anymore. It was history in real time. Reddick's run immediately put him alongside legendary names in the sport. Only a handful of drivers in history, icons like Dale Earnhardt in 1987 and Bill Elliott in 1992, had ever managed anything close to winning 4 of the first 6 races in a season. Now Reddick was doing it in the modern era, under the spotlight, against deeper fields than ever before. And then came Darlington, a race that looked like it would break him before it even truly began. On the opening lap, Reddick reported a serious electrical issue. His car's voltage was dropping. Something was wrong with the alternator system. For a moment, it looked like the run was about to end right there. The team made a bold call, replacing the battery with a higher capacity unit after the first stage. But the problem didn't fully go away. And now the race became something else entirely. With temperatures soaring and conditions punishing, Reddick had to shut down his cooling systems. No fans, no cool suit, just pure endurance inside a car turning into an oven. Inside the cockpit, it became survival. By the end of the race, he described it bluntly: sweating, exhausted, and fighting through pure physical strain just to stay competitive. But even under those conditions, he didn't fall back. He took control. Reddick led Shutiyoshu laps, tracked down Brad Keselowski after the final pit cycle, and then pulled away to win by 5.847 seconds. A statement victory, his 12th career Cup Series win. Keselowski, who had led 142 laps himself, admitted it directly. Reddick wasn't just fast, he was unstoppable. Back on pit road, Michael Jordan reacted immediately after the checkered flag. He didn't overcomplicate it, just pride in a team that had pushed through everything, a driver who stayed calm when everything around him was breaking, and a win that felt earned at every level. But the bigger picture was even more shocking. Through just 6 races, Reddick had already built a 5-point lead in the championship standings. At 325 points, he sat far ahead of the competition. His closest rival, Ryan Blaney of Team Penske, was already 95 points behind a gap that normally takes half a season to even approach. Meanwhile, the rest of the field was already chasing shadows. Teammates like Bubba Wallace, veterans like Denny Hamlin, and contenders from powerhouse teams like Hendrick Motorsports were all clustered behind him, but none were close enough to threaten the lead. And that's when the full weight of what had happened started to settle in. The settlement didn't just secure charters, it changed the power structure of NASCAR. For decades, the France family had controlled the sport with little external pressure. Since 1948, NASCAR had remained tightly governed, with no team owner ever forcing a structural shift of this scale through legal action. Until now, Jordan entered the lawsuit fully aware of the risk. He knew he could lose everything inside the sport. He had already been stripped of his charters before the case even ended. And still, he went to court. He testified under oath in Charlotte, and publicly stated he was prepared to walk away from NASCAR entirely if it meant forcing accountability. Not because he wanted conflict, but because he believed the system needed to be challenged. And now, in 2026, the outcome is visible everywhere. 4 wins in 6 races, a historic points lead, a permanently restructured charter system, and a team that went from being nearly pushed out of the sport to controlling its most dominant storyline. This isn't just a winning season. It's the aftermath of a fight that changed NASCAR forever. It didn't land the first time. About 10 years ago, when he said it out loud, the media, especially in Hollywood, reacted instantly. How dare he say that about these people? But something changed. By the fifth time he stepped on that stage, the same crowd wasn't outraged anymore. They were waiting for it. Go on, say it. Because now? It was funny. Too funny. But here's where things take a turn. Right now, there's a claim spreading online fast that the Epstein files expose Ellen DeGeneres as something far darker. The posts go as far as calling her Hollywood's most prolific cannibal. Yeah, that escalated quickly. Let's separate noise from reality. Here's what's actually true. Ellen DeGeneres' name does appear in the Epstein documents. Not as a charge, not as proof of wrongdoing, but as part of a massive index over 300 high-profile names tied in some way to the investigation surrounding Jeffrey Epstein. And that's where most people stop digging. But they shouldn't. Because years before any of those documents were released, someone was already saying things on live television that made the entire room uncomfortable. Not awkward. Uncomfortable. One line. Said in front of the most powerful people in Hollywood. And suddenly no one was laughing. That silence? It said more than any joke ever could. He kept doing it, year after year. Hollywood didn't laugh it off. They labeled him crazy. They shut doors. They made calls. The message was clear. If you work with him, you're done. That's how the system works. And then, while all of that was happening, something else was quietly growing in the background. On Empire. Built on one simple message, be kind. That empire belonged to Ellen DeGeneres. Now fast forward. The US Department of Justice releases millions of pages connected to Epstein. Her name is in there. And suddenly, those jokes from years ago? They don't feel like jokes anymore. But here's the part most people are missing. Before you even talk about Ellen, before the documents, before the connections, you need to understand the room. Every January, Hollywood gathers at the Golden Globes. The biggest actors, the richest producers, the people who decide who rises and who disappears. They sit at round tables, sipping champagne, laughing just enough to look human on camera. But that's all it is. A performance. And every year, the same man was invited back to host. A British comedian who had nothing to lose. No need for approval. No fear of being uninvited. Which made him dangerous. Because instead of playing along, he told the truth. Not to the celebrities sitting in front of him, but to the millions watching at home, the people who never got invited. The ones who never saw what happens when the cameras turn off. And year after year, he gave them something small but powerful. A crack in the wall. A glimpse behind the curtain. If you go back and watch those moments carefully, you'll notice something strange. It's not the jokes. It's the reactions. Forks stop moving. Smiles freeze. Cameras cut away fast. Because sometimes, it wasn't a joke. It was a reference. A name. A flight. And everyone in that room knew exactly what he meant. That's why he always said the same thing afterward. I didn't lie. I didn't make anything up. I only said what was already out there. No rumors. No guessing. Just truth hidden in plain sight.